Hello and welcome to No Apologies on Beck, where we are unafraid to speak the truth. I'm your host, Rick Becker, our co-host, Lori Hintz.
Hi. Where's your bourbon?
I know. You just pointed out. I'm looking up.
Dude, where's the bourbon? That's not right. This is the Bourbon Bureau, too.
So that will be up before segment 2.
I'm sure it will. All right, we're ready to roll.
All right, thanks for joining us tonight. We have a guest, Representative Ben Koppelman is going to be talking about one of his bills. We're going to be talking about hate crimes, including a segment specifically about a hate crime bill.
Ben Koppelman or Nathan Toman?
Nathan Toman.
Oh, my Lord, I was confused
Representative
there for
Nathan
a second.
Toman. I just talked to Ben Koppelman. He's going to be on Friday night. Sorry, folks.
Okay, good.
Doesn't matter, but Representative Nathan Toman is going to be talking about a financial sandbox, technology sandbox.
Oh,
it's an
that
interesting
sounds
concept.
so interesting.
Right.
Very good.
So Benny Koppelman, we're looking at on Friday.
Okay.
But yeah, we're gonna, and we had a bill come up in the House today about hate crimes, bias crimes it was called. So we're going to hit that.
Did it get voted on?
It did, and it failed like it should.
Good.
Yes, and brain food. So
Okay.
a whole show. So let's start off with the topic of hate crimes. And on segment 1, we're going to be kind of keeping it focused on federal.
Right.
When we come back for the next segment, we're going to be talking about North Dakota and that specific bill we talked about earlier.
So, the history of legislation. Let's talk about how legislation even started on hate crimes in 1968.
Yep.
Okay, so that at that point, it made it a crime to use or threaten to use force willfully, interfere with any person because of race, color, religion, or national origin.
Yep.
And that was kind of it.
In the Lyndon Baines Johnson administration.
Right.
Because he was all about, he was no saint. And he was not, throughout his lifetime, an advocate for the downtrodden and minorities. However, he found it very, very successful, politically speaking, to suddenly be an advocate for those things. So that's where we have civil rights legislation passed, and then, of course, the what is it called? Whatever the statute
Arson
is in
Prevention
1968.
Act. Oh, that was later on.
Yeah, so anyway, he passed this stuff. And again,
Right.
it's all about
Right.
trying to pander to minorities and to exactly what we see over and over, which is to sort of emphasize this victim mentality and that you're the savior for the victim. And so things that came into play. And, you know, it's so interesting because if we go back to 1968, when all of this started, I have to ask myself, at what point did someone think that it was worse, that killing somebody was a worse thing if you did it because you didn't like their skin color
Right.
or their religion than if you killed them because you didn't like the color of their shirt? How the person is dead either way.
Either way,
the
right.
family is without their loved one either way.
Right.
How is it worse? I mean, they're saying that, you know, it's kind of an extension of the whole thought police concept. They're basing it on motivations. What motivated you? And if you just didn't like the way that person looked, okay, that's one thing. But if you didn't like what country they came from, that is way worse.
It is. It's a weird leap. You're exactly right. That's a very good point, too. So as things went on, 20 years later than in 1988, protections on the basis of familial status and disability were added to that. And then in 1996, Congress passed that, I just mentioned it, the Church Arson Prevention Act. So that one actually talked about religious persecution, I'm assuming, or religious hate crime.
Yep, exactly. Then the biggie. I mean, the 68 one was big because that set the precedent like, hey, we are declaring that your motivation will determine on how severe the penalty is for this particular crime.
Right.
But with Obama in 2009, it was the Shepard-Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act. And that
I remember
carried it.
Matthew Shepard, that story being just huge and being pushed out, and I remember it being sensationalized as well during that year.
Yeah, well, and they use these things.
Yes.
They use them for political advantage. It's always unfortunate.
It is. It was horrible.
And
It was
it's
a horrible
hard.
crime.
It's a fine line, right? Between true moral outrage, where you say this is something that has to be stopped, and where you say, hey, we can capitalize on this. We can manufacture exaggerated outrage. We can declare that this is something that is going on throughout the United States, that it's ubiquitous.
Everywhere.
And so we need laws immediately to take care of this horrible situation when it's not necessarily that way. But they used it that way, and so what it did in one respect is it really gave the federal government more power to come in because it took down the barriers of jurisdictions, state and local jurisdictions. It allowed the federal government to come in and say, hey, that's a hate crime. We've got it. We're taking it over. We're going to prosecute it.
Exactly. The Shepherd Bird Act made it a federal crime to willfully cause bodily injury or attempt to do so using a dangerous weapon because of a victim's actual or perceived race, color, religion, or national origin. The act also extended federal hate crime prohibitions to crimes committed because of the actual or perceived religion, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability of any person as well. So they added on as they went along.
With the big ones, sexual orientation.
And gender
and
identity.
then bigger than that even is gender identity, because that's a whole different level. Yeah.
Right.
So that's where it all started. One of the things, we have a graphic here. One of the things that is interesting is just really how this all plays out with actual statistics. We hear that this is so prevalent, and yet when you really drill down on things, you show our next graphic.
It isn't really a pervasive issue when you look at it in terms of, you can't even see the 7 on the sliver on the bottom there.
Right.
But you look at number in the U.S. Property crimes, violent crimes, and 7 hate crimes. Are these prosecuted?
Well, yeah, I believe so. And it's interesting because they also break it down into one bias or several bias. And on the floor of the House today, I asked the question, if one person hurts another person, and the person that was harmed is female, Catholic, from Estonia, wearing a MAGA hat and an NDSU t-shirt, what is the reason she was harmed? I mean, it could be for the NDSU t-shirt.
Right.
But depending on who's prosecuting and yada, 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 it could be because she's from Estonia, because she's female, because she's Catholic. We don't know. And anyway, that would get into the multiple bias with regard to that. They reported far more single bias crimes than multiple bias crimes. But it's not to say that it's not heinous.
Right.
And important.
That's the other thing too. I mean, you got to look at it in terms of feelings versus the actual facts. And yes, of course it's going to be heinous, but you have to look in terms of the facts of the case, and you have to kind of divorce yourself from the feelings part of it.
Right. And I still go back to, yes, we all hate racism, we all hate prejudice, but if you kill somebody,
they're still dead.
That's it. That's the offense. Murder is the offense. It doesn't matter why I did. If I damage someone's property because I'm angry at how they parked, or if I don't want to say or if someone damages someone's property because of how they look. Right. They damage their property. They transgressed on their rights of liberty and property, and so they need to be prosecuted for those offenses.
Now, if we want to get more bang for our legislative buck, we might be better off just spending legislation and time and effort on just ignoring the motivations for the crime completely and just prosecuting the crime itself.
Well, right, and exactly right. You prosecute the crime, you prosecute the actual offense, and you don't prosecute the motivation. That leads to, we think back to the Minority Report. What goes on in a person's head. If one person is racially motivated but doesn't act on it, that they didn't commit a crime.
Exactly.
Yet they're just as bad, as far as how their thought process goes. So we cannot prosecute thought processes.
Right.
And we will never eradicate, because that's what the goal is for some of these with the feds. You cannot eradicate bias crimes. Because you can't eradicate racism. You can't eradicate prejudice. Exactly. That will not happen. It's human nature. Can't be addressed. And
you can't exactly go into somebody's head and then start plucking things out of there either. I mean, if people are going to have those thoughts, it's not like you can be the thought police and prosecute somebody for their thoughts, although they're trying right now. Yeah. I mean, it's attempted. But
so what I would say to the viewers is, my take is that prosecute crimes and don't get inside people's heads, because no matter how you feel about it, no matter how much you would like it to not be the case, we can't prosecute based on motivation. It's just the wrong path to go down.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the more local state bill here in the House. We'll be right back with that.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. We're talking more about hate crimes. Today we heard a bill in the State House, House Bill 1443. Prime sponsor was Representative Ruth Buffalo out of Fargo. Yep. And so we have in North Dakota law, as it stands right now, we do have a hate crime law on the books. Where it makes it a Class B misdemeanor if you commit a hate crime. And I'm going to get to it eventually.
It's going to be the last one.
Good thing I was prepared. At any rate, in the language for this bill, it gave a definition for what a bias crime is, because they're using the word bias. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
It's a criminal act committed against a person or a person's property in whole or in part because of actual or perceived race, color, religion, gender, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, or ancestry.
Actual, they had me at. They lost me at or perceived. And when you start, that's so nebulous and so erroneous, because you can't tell what somebody's perceiving, can you? That just seems ridiculous. I don't understand how you can even do that. But an actual, in part because of actual or perceived. How can you even? Well, if it's convict somebody on perception.
If they perceive, well, that's one of the many, many problems with it. So the hate crime we have currently in North Dakota, I finally found it. A person is guilty of a Class B misdemeanor if, what goes on, if they intentionally injure, intimidate, or interfere with another because of his sex, race, color, religion, or national origin.
Even interfere with someone?
Yep.
That's another nebulous term.
Well, no, I mean, it didn't give all the details. I didn't want to read all of it. But I mean, basically, we've got it covered. If you do something because of racism and prejudice, It's in North Dakota law. It's already in law.
That's the original.
Because you get the crime that you did, and then you get the Class B misdemeanor for the hate crime on top of it.
Oh, I
That's
see.
currently in our criminal code.
Has it been
in Century
around
Code.
for a really long time, or probably within the last couple of sessions? I want to say only...
It's been around for a few sessions, but not for a really long time.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's that. So we have then a bill that came before us, made that definition of what a biased crime is. Now, what's interesting is that the proponents had wanted us to have reporting and training of police officers, and they didn't really emphasize too much, but a huge part of the bill was also increased penalties. So I'll get into those, but one of the things that really bothered me that they talked about in the supporting testimony, there is an advisory committee, the North Dakota Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. Now, and what we heard, because we heard a lot of testimony on this bill, they say in this particular paper, North Dakota has been notorious for high occurrences of hate crimes, ranking second with the most per capita in 2012, 2014, 2015. And then they go on to say that there were years that it was way down, but the reason it was way down is because the reporting wasn't good. So I guess the reporting is good if we have a lot of hate crimes, and it's not good when we don't. So what they're trying to do is say, what a hateful people we are in North Dakota. What a hateful, hateful people, and we need to be educated.
That's absolutely the opposite of the truth.
Right. So, and that's the purpose of this bill, is to bring out that whole, again, victim culture, to divide. It's really something. So I want to go into the 3 areas where there are increased penalties.
All right.
All right. In one area, we've got harassment, okay? If you harass somebody, it's a Class B misdemeanor. You spend up to 30 days in jail. But if you harass somebody and you do it, and this is the language, in whole or in part because, so if they determine like, well, you didn't completely do it because you hate their national origin, color, yada, yada, yada.
You get 30
but even if you kind of did it in part, so in whole or in part, you get a Class A misdemeanor. So that's up to a year in jail.
Wow.
Yes.
For harassment?
For harassment, absolutely.
My.
Criminal mischief, which we'll call property damage. If you tamper with or you damage someone's property, you're looking at a Class B misdemeanor, which is up to 30 days in jail. But if you do it in whole or in part because of an actual or perceived, that whole list,
crime.
ancestry, religion, race, yada, yada, not 30 days, 10 years. 10 years in prison if they are able to somehow convince a jury that, well, you did it because of their color, their religion, or whatever.
Wow.
Right.
10?
10 years. I know. It's unbelievable. There's another one here, aggravated assault. So if you go out, Lori, like you usually do, and you slap somebody you disagree with, you can get a Class B misdemeanor for simple assault.
Okay.
Okay. However,
but if I smack somebody because of malintent and because of their race or
if you slap them and they happen to be Catholic, if you don't like Catholics, or whatever it might be.
Catholics. Okay.
Okay. But maybe they accuse you. Maybe you said something that offended them because you disagreed with the Pope and therefore you hate Catholics. You got to be careful.
I get that leap. I get it.
So instead of being a simple assault with a Class B misdemeanor of 30 days, it becomes an aggravated assault, which is a Class C felony, which is 5 years in prison.
Wow.
Now, the question is, who gets to determine?
Precisely.
It's going to be probably a combination of law enforcement.
Right.
It's going to be
Legal.
certainly prosecution, the court. Are they going to go back into social media? And again, because of the situation with people on the right being routinely called racist.
Right.
If you supported Trump, you're a racist.
Precisely.
And if you supported Trump and you were involved in some kind of altercation with someone of color,
automatic leap.
Right. That's what it seems.
Wow.
And this bill had the same flaws as all the other hate crime laws, which is this credible subjectivity of motivation.
Right. Can you tell me what was the debate like on the floor? Because they probably, and did it come out of committee with a do pass or?
With the do not pass, a strong do not pass. Yes,
okay.
It was 12-2. The two Democrats voted in favor of it. One of them was Ruth Buffalo.
Okay.
And their concerns were that we didn't amend it to be good enough for passage, because there were some areas that we could have tried to make better. But the thing is, if you got a real pig of a bill, you don't put lipstick on it and then send it out. It just, there's no point in trying to improve that. There were
now you're in trouble because you said pig. So
perhaps.
No, I totally get it. So if you've got a bill that's already flawed like that, to that egregious point, there's no reason whatsoever to try to amend something.
Right. I mean, it's a fine line, because you want to have the bill in its best form.
Right.
But the entirety of the bill is something that the majority in the committee have no interest in passing. So why work to try and make little parts of it better?
Exactly.
When it's already.
Did you get to speak on the floor?
I did, and I want to say one other thing here, with regard to subjectivity, and I brought this up on the bill as well on the floor. This commission that I've been talking about, their report, it's a public report. They submitted it as testimony. Mm-hmm. As an example of what the problem is with subjectivity, I'm going to read one little paragraph in this report, and it references the prime sponsor of the bill, Representative Ruth Buffalo.
All right.
It says, panelist Ruth Buffalo, a state representative, noted that one challenge that we face in North Dakota is that people don't really understand or grasp the fact that their behavior is bias motivated. So,
you don't even know you're biased.
Problem one, you may commit a crime, and as far as you know, you're not racist, but you could be.
You wouldn't even
You could
know.
be and not know it. So in that sense, you don't need to have the motivation, because someone else will impute the motivation to you.
They're going to assign it to you.
How ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Okay,
wow.
Secondly, she goes on, Representative Buffalo goes on, recently there was a case where an individual was taken out of a sweat lodge during a religious practice here in Fargo by the authorities. Should that be a hate crime by pulling someone out of a sweat lodge, which is considered a church? They're practicing their civil rights by exercising their religious freedom. So Representative Buffalo is suggesting that it may very well be a hate crime for law enforcement to arrest somebody who's in a sweat lodge. It's a hate crime. This is what's over the top with this. Fortunately, the bill failed by a large margin. We have a little clip. Go ahead and play it. So for those reasons, and many more, the committee recognized that this bill uses identity politics to promote victim culture, which further divides an already divided nation. And with a 12-2 vote, we recommend a do not pass. So, kind of subdued. I know that you're always...
I'm just always shocked at how more mellow you are on the
Well,
House floor.
But
you
have to
be.
be.
I know, much more refined than what I see.
But anyway, it failed, and it should have failed. It is just it's just a point that the Democrats use, as I said, to divide us, continue to divide us.
Well, when we come back, we will be talking to a local guy who is a legislator, Nathan Toman, next.
Love that quote.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Beck Communications is hiring. Beck Communications is seeking qualified candidates for plant technicians in our Wheatland, North Dakota location. Beck Communications is an equal opportunity employer. To view the job details, visit www.beck.com. beck.coop. To apply, email your cover letter and resume to careers@bechtel.coop. Beck Communications, making connections that matter.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.coop for eligibility guidelines and applications.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck, your after-hours oasis of sanity. Did you? I'm embarrassed with how I'm rummaging through papers like a novice,
that was new.
newbie.
That was definitely new. It's all everywhere.
I know.
Right.
It's
very organized.
Clearly not at my A game tonight. Sorry, folks. You will get a full refund.
Not to worry. I'm sure we're going to make it up here.
All right. So we are lucky to have with us Representative Nathan Toman from Mandan. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, Rick.
Yes, absolutely. So we've got House Bill 1268, essentially it deals with financial technology sandbox. So that sounds very interesting, and it sounds like the average person would not have a clue what it is. So can you set the table for us?
Financial technology is anything from like a Venmo or a PayPal, or if you would go into the crypto side of it, it's like an XRP or a Stellar to transfer money or other applications in the financial realm. So House Bill 1268, which was to set up a sandbox, which would be a kind of an incubator or a development status with low regulation, so that they could test their product before they bring it to the full market. And so that was the purpose of that bill, which did fail today.
Let's just take a quick look here. So this is in the bill. Financial Technology Sandbox means the program created by this chapter, which allows a person to make innovative financial product or services available to consumers during the sandbox period through a waiver of existing statutory and rule requirements by the commissioner or secretary. So just as you said, I mean, basically it's like, you know what, which is what we should always do.
Right.
We're going to get government out of your hair.
Absolutely.
And just let you be and see what you can create. But it failed today.
Right. We do have a stopgap in House Resolution 3024, but really the purpose of that sandbox bill was to get those companies that are maybe leaving high regulation states like California or New York to maybe look at headquartering here to build the next financial tech app.
Yeah.
And so that was really the purpose, is to diversify and to get those companies here and then incubate that technology.
Well, it seems like it's, that where the future is, and it seems like it would be a great idea to pass it. Now, Wyoming passed something similar, was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
I believe in 2018 they did, or maybe it was 17. But yeah, they have one person actually relocating from California because of their crypto-friendly legislation and low regulation. So, I mean, we're trying to compete with them, essentially, is what we're trying to do.
Right. So yeah, unfortunately it failed. Let's pull up the next graphic. This is, as you said, our stopgap, I guess. House Concurrent Resolution 3024, which has not come before the House yet. And it's the legislative management consider studying the feasibility and desirability of regulating special purpose depository institutions for cryptocurrency. So tell us just a little bit about that, because that's a special purpose depository institution is a little bit different than a finance tech sandbox.
We did I did roll in the financial tech into this study.
Okay.
So there was an amendment, and that did get adopted. But the special purpose depository would be banking the unbanked. So not just having your own crypto wallet, either offline or online on your phone. This would be an institution that would accept deposits of virtual currency, and it would have to be backed one-to-one since they're not FDIC insured. So I was going to drop that bill in, but there's some other issues with gold and silver depositories and exchanges that I didn't want to muddle with, so we put it into a study, and then we added that financial piece because we knew that 1268 was going to go down, and we wanted to actually get some good information because that was the excuse of why they didn't want to pass it, was there's too much FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So
yes, well, there's always
fear of the unknown,
yes.
especially. So
And what do you think I'm sorry, did it come out of committee yet?
Yeah, I came out with a unanimous do pass, so it's going to be on the consent calendar. So
good for you.
Wonderful. Yeah. I got to tell you a little story. So I had a ledger for crypto, or whatever you call it. What do you call it?
Ledger wallet, yeah.
Yeah. So I had one of those little doodads to store all your crypto on. And when I was getting everything in there, I had stepped away, came back, and it was plugged into the computer. And I touched it, and I got a shock, a static shock. And the next thing I know, my physical ledger was melting. Honest to God.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I'm confused at how. So I haven't put on another one because I'm kind of worried that if I rely on it, it's going to melt on me.
Well, as long as you have your keys and your.
Well,
then,
right. I suppose because I could use the keys and go online. I don't need. Yeah. Okay. Well, I should have given you a call instead.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else as far as I love the idea of the Sandbox, and it's the same thing that has been used around the world for lifting overall regulations. They like an economic freedom. They don't call it a sandbox, but a zone, and it's been used in Central America and various other areas. I think it's a great idea. I mean, has anyone talked to you about using this type of thing for other purposes besides technology?
In committee, they did mention that it had been used for insurance products in the past, and I don't know to what success it's been used, but
I gotcha. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I hope that we can get this study done. One of the concerns, with a study that we pass, a study resolution, is that it's up to legislative management, which is is it 14? I don't know, but it's a certain number of legislators that are elected to that committee. They choose what they're going to study, and so I hope that they choose this one, and I hope they study the heck out of it because it really deserves.
I have a question. I know this may be odd, but is there any type of a fiscal note attached to this? Because it's a sandbox, so it could be anything, right? I mean.
Well, they did attach a fiscal note, the regulators did, because they would need to hire FTEs or write regulations, new regulations, so that was the purpose of it. I don't necessarily agree with the amount that they tacked on there, but that's not why they defeated the bill. It was just because there was too much unknowns to them, I guess. So
that was my next question: is it a case where you have to educate people as to how it works and what it does before they will be able to sign on to it?
I think that's the majority of it, but there is a danger of staying streets behind when you keep wanting to study it. It's good to have that information, but it's not bad to be on the leading edge like Wyoming or Arizona has been. So.
With technology, it's a good idea to be on the leading edge and not way behind the curve.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Do you have any other technology-related bills in the hopper?
I do not, but we did pass, last session, we did pass some blockchain stuff for signatures.
Yes. Yeah, you did fantastic with that, and that was important stuff that we passed last session. I was hoping we'd build on it this session, but at least if we get a study out of it, I'll take that.
Something can come out of it.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Nathan, for being with us. Really appreciate it. Happy to have you on.
District 34, for those of you in District 34, Nathan Toman.
He does good work. All right, we are going to be back next with Brain Food.
Howdy folks, it's the Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bussin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell 'em about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications. If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.co for eligibility guidelines and applications.
Hello, welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. It's time for Brain Food.
Woohoo, another brain food. This one's an interesting one. I'm starting with a word tonight that I don't actually use in conversation. I know it's weird. I usually use words that I show, but this one I don't think I've ever used this word before, but it came up in something that I was reading. So let's show it. It is the word plenary. It can also, however, be pronounced plenary. Doesn't matter, either way is correct. It means complete in every respect, or absolute, unqualified, as in plenary power or plenary power. Fully attended or constituted by all entitled to be present, like a plenary session. Some synonyms for the word plenary would be complete, comprehensive, entire, full, intact, integral, perfect, total, whole, plenary. Mm-hmm. A plenary meeting of the 500 members was held last summer would be a sentence, or also plenary sessions of the legislature. So history, Middle English from the Latin plenarius, from Latin plenus, meaning full.
Huh.
P-L-E-N-U-S.
Plenus. All right. Okay, so mine is dealing with Aztecs and Mayans. Right? What's the difference?
Right. I don't know. What is the difference?
Yeah.
Location?
It is. It's some of it is a lot of it's location actually, and I mean some of it is culture. The Aztecs, I think, tended to be a little more artsy, things like that. But they both built some pretty cool stuff, big old pyramids. You see that the Mayans are over in that more eastern part, which is in the Yucatan Peninsula, so Cancun. That area, if you've been there, down south going into Belize, and then a good part of that whole western area of the Mayan in the tan is Guatemala. Although it says Guatemala below that, Guatemala extends up into that region.
Got it.
Versus in the southern Mexico region where the Aztecs were primarily. The Mayans had a much longer dynasty. I mean, they started off like 2000 BC.
Wow.
And so they kind of predated, thank you, the Aztecs. The Aztecs were later, more in the like 250 to 900 AD era, but they continued then. That was their height. Both Mayans and Aztecs continued well into the 15th, 16th centuries.
They have kind of different styles with their architecture and with their art too, don't they?
They do a little bit. I can't get into big details there, but the Maya were much less predominant at the time that the Spanish conquistadors came over, versus the Aztecs were at their height. And so that's what you hear about is the conquistadors conquering the Aztecs because they were the warriors. They were managed by one king. The Mayans were a little bit more, slightly more docile, a little bit more agrarian. They didn't have a big king. They had like the mayor of each of their city-states. But they both were around, and in fact, the Mayans are still around a great deal. And as you know, I've got some Mayan friends down in Belize.
Yes,
and
and I haven't actually been to any Aztec areas that I can think of off the top of my head in Mexico, but I have been to Mayan ruins in Tulum near Quintana Roo, and the Mayan ruins were really neat.
Tulum, Chichen Itza is up by Cancun, and then you get over, boy, I'm trying to think of it. Caracol and Xunantunich, it doesn't matter, but Tikal is over in Guatemala. Unbelievable. That's where Tikal is where they shot some of the Star Wars movies because of like, you see the big stone things coming out of the trees. That's Tikal.
Oh, very, very cool. Well, I just remember when I got to see the ruins in Tulum that I came back and it was a year before I could donate blood because it was a malaria zone. I was so sad. So when I like to donate blood, and then if I go to an area that is a malaria zone, then they'd like take you off the list to be able to donate blood for a long time. So just note to self. All right, my next word. This word I use all the time because it is devoid, and devoid is an adjective as well. This time being without a usual, typical, or expected attribute or accompaniment, used with of, as in an argument devoid of sense, or a landscape devoid of life. Some synonyms would be bankrupt or bare, barren, bereft, destitute, void, as in devoid. A sentence would be most walls were stripped down to the hooks that once held photographs, and offices were devoid of the clutter and trinkets that gave them life. A little history of it. Past participle of devoiden, to dispel, from Anglo-French. Desvoidier, from dis, as in voider, to empty. So, Devoidier. Anyways, it's French. I'm not a big fan.
Okay, then you say, Devoidier.
Exactly, precisely.
I'm French.
Exactly.
I'm French.
I kind of,
okay.
Yeah.
Next, for me, I'm sticking with the Mayan theme.
Okay, very cool.
And we've got a photo up here, and this
Alrighty then.
Yeah, this is a skeleton. This is a Mayan sacrifice. It's a real skeleton, but it is kind of embedded in the floor because it's in a cave, and as you know, with stalagmites, stalactites, it's calcified because of drippings of calcium from the cave ceiling.
Wow.
Now, this is known as ATM, and it stands for Aktun Tunichil Muknal, and it's an unbelievable place to visit. If you have an opportunity, and I hate to say this, because I hate for a bunch of people to go there because it's so special. But our viewers are so special. And what I'd like to do is just tell you a little bit about it, Laura.
Okay.
It's amazing. If you have a chance, you have to go there. Okay. It's in Belize.
It's in Belize.
You have to walk for about a half hour. Then you come to this beautiful cave, and you have to swim. At the mouth of the cave, you can't get in unless you swim, but it's not a big swim. It's like, I don't know, 20 yards or 30 yards. And then you get into the cave. You're not permitted to wear shoes, and you can only have a very, very specialized guide.
Okay.
You're also not permitted to have a camera because a couple years back, somebody was taking a picture of a skull, dropped the camera on the skull, and crushed in its frontal bone.
No.
But you go through there, and there's pottery everywhere. There's skeletons. I forget if there's 14 or something like that. And you kind of go through the water and wedge through,
I've
and you
done that
climb
one time,
up
and
and
it
do
was
all
so
that. Right.
cool. Oh,
very,
wow.
very, very one of the best things that my wife and I have done.
Neat.
I highly recommend it. And the stories about this, because this is a cave they would take people for sacrifice, and they would take children and tie them up and leave them there for sacrifice. And yeah, there's even a cave somewhere around there. I'll have to find it, but it's called Cave of the Midnight Terror.
Oh.
Yeah, it sounds horrible.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to visit if you have an opportunity.
All right, on that note, we're going to wrap up this one, and we're going to go next to some more executive orders from our new president. When we come back.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel, from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck, or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. You guessed it, we are at segment 5. And as I so often say, good job for sticking with us.
Hanging in there. Good for you.
All right,
So,
executive orders.
Executive orders. We've been going one by one.
You say that I make things dark.
Yeah.
This executive orders is
It does bum
dark.
me out. I have to tell you, because everything is so repetitive, and it's honestly not really fun for me to go through these executive orders, because it makes me remember who's in the White House, and that's the God's honest truth for me. So that's why. So I am kind of bummed about them, because I just feel it's going to be really, really difficult to roll all
We're gonna
these
have to
back.
put a positive spin on this.
Okay.
Somehow.
All right, let's work on that somehow.
Okay.
So the first one that we're going to talk about today is the executive order on supporting the reopening and continuing operation of schools and early childhood education providers. And many child care providers continue to provide care and learning opportunities to children in homes and centers across the country. However, leadership and support from the federal government is needed, because doesn't that make everything better, Rick?
Well, absolutely it does, Lori. And I want to thank President Biden for ensuring that the federal government is going to make things better. And I'm being positive about it.
Think about
But,
that.
I also want to thank him for helping to open my eyes to understand that we are not able really to do anything.
We're pretty much helpless
Without the federal government.
That's all true.
That's positivity for you there.
Direct the Department of Education's Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights to deliver a report as soon as practicable on the disparate impacts of COVID-19 on students in elementary, secondary, and higher education, including those attending historically black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, and other minority serving institutions. I got nothing. I'm not saying anything.
Well, okay, this isn't going to be another form of how we get redistribution.
Exactly.
You know, as it says in here, that they will address educational disparities and inequities that the pandemic has created and exacerbated. That means they do that because their answer is always costing money, right? Because they're investing in whatever.
Right.
But what they're investing is somebody's money, because the government doesn't have their own money.
Right.
And so they're going to take it from the areas that they have determined aren't in need and move it to the areas that are in need, which sounds fine, except it's how do they determine what's in need. And naturally, the areas that are going to be most in need are going to be the areas that are controlled by those of the same political persuasion.
Precisely. So the thing that I have a problem with that last slide, was the fact that they are talking about elementary schools and COVID. And to me, that seems really hypocritical, because has that not been science-y? Hasn't anyone looked at science on that? Because last I knew, the science does not hold up for elementary schools and COVID.
No, not at all. Not at all. But they're not going to let facts get in the way of their narrative.
Silly me. Yeah,
because they own science, right? So it doesn't matter. But you're absolutely right. The science would indicate that this is not a problem in
the least.
In elementary school. It is a problem because of teachers' unions. And again, like always, like everything, they don't want to let this crisis go to waste. So the unions are standing up to try and make it a big thing, to try and successfully politicize it, and to somehow use it as leverage to get more of what they want, because the Biden administration and the leftists are very, very concerned about placating the union people. They say, hey, that the kids' needs are foremost concern, when in actuality, everybody knows that those kids' concerns are secondary to placating the unions.
May I just point out that the very first 19 or 20 of the executive orders were done on the first day. That would be January 20th. It is now mid-February. We're a month later, basically, now, and there's a lot of kids still not in schools. They are in Florida. Great. They're in Florida. They're in schools. But across the country, wasn't this supposed to be, and it says purposely and reopening and continuing operation of schools, and it's not happening. So I am assuming, like you said, that the unions are controlling everything and he's kowtowing to them, because it's not happening.
Right. And in each of these executive orders, wherever they can, we've talked about how they are constantly putting equity in there, but they're also getting in things like data collection, which is in this executive order. It says to facilitate the collection of data needed to inform the safe reopening, yada, yada, yada. And they also are using it to continue having their fingers in everything, because they want to continue with contact tracing, to expand contact tracing. And contact tracing is the way that they are able to continue to keep their pulse on who we're seeing, where we're going, what we're doing. Again, total control.
It really worries me. Speaking of total control, in Minnesota right now, their new education standards are just horrendous. The new standards would eliminate any teaching about World War I, World War II, the Holocaust, the Civil War, the American Revolution, communism, and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, according to John Hindrecker at the Powerline blog. So yikes. So I do not want these people in charge of education. Not only are they not getting the kids even to school, these kids are suffering. They're not even in school. They're being held hostage by the unions right now. And then they're going to start shoving this on them. I'm just appalled. I'm not a happy camper on the whole education thing.
You know, it's only gotten worse, but at this point, I don't know how you cannot at least look to see if it's possible to look for another option for your children, whether it's private school, online, home, hybrid model, whatever it might be. But to think that this is something that's not so bad, that's going to go away, no, it's just getting worse, and it has been for a couple of decades.
Right.
It really has for a few decades.
Like it's accelerated at this point now too.
Let's hit one more executive order.
Protecting worker health and safety. And this one, the federal government must take swift action to reduce the risk that workers may contract COVID-19 in the workplace. That will require issuing science-based guidance, there's sciencey again, to help keep workers safe from COVID-19 exposure, including with respect to mask wearing, partnering with state and local governments to better protect public employees, enforcing worker health and safety requirements, and pushing for additional resources. Look at that, pushing for additional resources to help employers protect employees. So,
you know, they say in there too, healthcare workers and other essential workers, many of whom are people of color and immigrants, have put their lives on the line. Many of whom are people of color. No kidding.
Like, thank you, Captain
What is
Obvious.
wrong with you? Everything. You look at everything through the prism of skin color.
It's so frustrating.
Why must you be so obsessed with race? Why must everything be about race? Because you're a flippin' racist.
Every single thing of these executive orders has it built in.
Protecting the healthcare workers and the safety of people is
racist.
Again about race.
It's shocking.
These people make me sick.
All right. Join us again tomorrow. We've got a really, really good show for you next time because Tony Gehrig is going to rejoin us, and we'll talk to him about subsidies and knock out some more delightful executive orders. Join us.